Yo, what's up guys? Catmaster here with my League Starter recommendations for 3.25, the ultimate boat league. Now in 3.25 Settlers of Kalguur, we'll be able to use the currencies, the minerals, the resources that we find in the encounters and maps in order to upgrade our settlement and work towards delayed rewards via various mechanics. And of course, we want to play a strong build for that. And if you're looking to get into 3.25 Settlers of Kalguur, playing Path of Exile maybe for the first time or just returning and this time looking for a very strong starter, I got you covered. Here are 3 builds that I would recommend to my dearest friends, to my worst enemies, and to my own grandmother, because these are builds that are fail-proof and that will amaze you when you play them. No doubt about it. Also, as you can see in the middle of the screen, there's a countdown timer until Tuesday, 30th of July, 10 a.m. Belfast time, which is 9 a.m. GMT, which is 11 a.m. my local German time. We are going to be joined by no other than Lighty and Talkative Try to hang out on the Faded Connections podcast together with Balor and myself and to discuss all our discoveries of the League Start weekend. And now, without further ado, let's go into the builds. Now, the one build that I'm most definitely recommending to old and new players alike, for anyone who just wants to blast through maps, have a lot of fun, and basically play a very low effort build that can clear maps quickly and doesn't die around every corner. This is Righteous Fire Chieftain, authored by Pohx. Pohx has been min-maxing Righteous Fire builds for a number of leagues now, quite some time. He's been on the Juggernaut, he's been on the Hierophant, on the Inquisitor, you name it. Pohx has played them all, and for this league, he recommends the Righteous Fire on Chieftain. Now, there are some things that changed in this build from last league. Pohx recommends the Chieftain this time because he was able to squeeze in block, and of course endurance charges are massively buffed this league, providing elemental damage reduction on top of physical damage reduction. And outside of this being a very tanky and very accessible build in terms of playstyle, because you only run around burning everything with your Righteous Fire and throwing fire traps to single targets, this is also one of the most well-documented builds. As you can see, Pohx has his own Righteous Fire wiki on pohx.net, where there is a great variety and multitude of resources, specific Act 1 through 10 walkthroughs for the different classes that are recommended in this league, as well as written guides, a loot filter, top tips, atlas trees, you name it. Everything that you need for your league start is on here. If you want to play Righteous Fire, look no further, this is where you should go. But of course, does the build not only come with a very accessible playstyle and with a highly documented own website for Righteous Fire builds, but what would be a build guide without a very detailed path of building file where you have leveling trees for all the leveling sections, and for early end game, for late end game, after acquiring a single cluster, after acquiring Perandus Pact, and so on, as well as a number of different gear sets for the different levels and investments. So this should be relatively easy for you to get through. You also have skill sets for the different levels and tips and tricks in here, as well as important notes. Of course, if you have any questions about the build, you can always hit up Pohx on his live stream, twitch.tv/POHX. What's always important to keep in mind with starter builds, though, is that the starter build that you pick is a solid all-rounder. Now, with the Righteous Fire build, this will be able to do a lot of content, and like I said, will be an exceptional mapper, but probably not the best build to get into early Uber bosses and early endgame bosses. You will be able to get your Watchstones undoubtedly with this, and you should have no problems progressing through the game. But if you're looking to play this build, this is more like a speedy map runner at heart. If you're looking to do something that has a lot more single target, which starter you want to pick always depends on your Atlas strategy and which mechanics you're looking to implement into that early on. So I would say this build, thanks to its explosions from Chieftain and the nice AoE walking simulator damage right around the character, this is very suitable for dense maps with a lot of monsters, for running incursion, for running possibly expedition, abysses, breaches, that sort of stuff. Also, of course, strong boxes are very good. If you want something that requires a little bit more single target, I would personally recommend another all-rounder, although it's all very well doable on this one. But my next recommendation is, and I might be biased here, it's Balor Mage's Holy Relic of Conviction Necromancer. Now, this build is truly exceptional because it is a minion build. You don't require to do any damage yourself, and you basically get a lot of defensive benefits from your animated guardian. As you can see, Balor is running around with Fortify over there, as well as huge single target damage. Now, Balor says himself that the DPS in the POB is completely wrong, and he doesn't know why, and he doesn't know how to fix it without fudging the POB. So he doesn't do it because he doesn't want to be accused of manipulating the numbers. But this build has a lot of damage. According to Balor, this feels like it has in the 10 millions DPS. I think Balor said something like, for every 500k DPS you see in the POB, it feels like 30 million. Watch Balor's video, and don't quote me on that, I might be wrong. It might be 30 million per 5 million, but it is really strong for a low investment, and it's a very attractive playstyle. And most importantly, this is a very good all-rounder build. So if you're looking to run Sanctum, if you're looking to run bosses, if you're looking to do anything that requires a big single target outside of your maps, this is definitely my recommendation for newer players. It might be a little bit more expensive to put together. However, you can do this on a low budget and farm up the high budget that you need for the high budget version. No problem. This is not quite as detailed and overwhelming in detail as the Pohx build, but still has a number of different skill sets, as well as different trees to explain to you the progression and the transition from early maps into very end game maps. Important to look out for is the Timeless Jewel, because if you want to buy this very specific Timeless Jewel that Balor has in there, this is likely going to be overpriced. Watch Balor's video in order to understand how you find better jewels that may be more suitable for your budget. And as always, you can go to twitch.tv/BalorMage for any and all questions about the build. The way that this works is the summoned holy relics, which are hovering around you, are being triggered every time you hit an enemy with an attack. That means you're using a 4-link Lancing Steel with life gain on hit, Withering Touch, returning projectiles to maximize the amount of hits that you do, and to apply the Wither debuff, because the physical damage Nova spell that is being cast by Holy Relic every time you hit an enemy with an attack will then poison via minion poison chance and kill enemies with damage over time. Great build. If you haven't played it yet, give it a shot. Definitely one of my top recommendations. And now we've covered the easy beginner build, which is the Pohx Righteous Fire Chieftain. We've covered the powerhouse all-rounder build, which is very accessible for both old and new players. And now we're going to go into the build that I'm most likely going to play, and that is a beautiful snowflake melee build. Now, if you've been watching my stream, you're probably aware that I have been meaning to play a Glacial Hammer build for quite some time now, and I think this league, when the huge melee buff is hitting, I'm going to go Glacial Hammer Slayer. Now, I'm going to follow Goratha's POB. Goratha is a very prolific, high intelligence, 5-head build creator who's been playing Path of Exile for many years and been making many amazing builds. Also one of the best racers and generally one of the most competent players around in the community. And Goratha has played Glacial Hammer already 2 leagues ago, I think in 3-2-3 or 3-2-2. Played it on, I think, Berserker before and on Juggernaut. And this league, Goratha recommends Slayer, with probably one of the reasons for this recommendation being the insane powerhouse that Slayer Leech is, meaning the leech that doesn't stop at your full life. And Slayer Leech does not only grant you big survivability, but it also enables the trauma support, which allows you to utilize the trauma mechanic outside of Bone Shatter. Normally, Bone Shatter is the only skill that allows you to gain trauma the first time the attack hits an enemy, but with trauma support, you can put this on any skill, including Glacial Hammer. Now, this allows for some juicy damage scaling, but it also means that every time you hit an enemy while you have trauma on you, you hit yourself with physical damage, which means you do need to stack physical damage mitigation via endurance charges and armor. And of course, you need to be able to recover the damage that you take from those hits, and therefore Slayer is an excellent choice. Now, Goratha is also providing a very juicy path of building, which already with mediocre entry-level endgame gear, I wouldn't say entry level, like, because there's some decent jewelry here, but using a Frost Breath and a Heat Shiver and a Yoke of Suffering reaches 10 million hit DPS on the Glacial Hammer. But this is not the final setup. This is actually just the budget version. If you're getting a rare weapon and you get like some expensive Relic boots, a great +1 Frenzy Charge ring that you mirror with Kalandra's Touch onto your other ring slot, and the Arn's Belt to get brutal charges on top of endurance charges because of Relicash, you can reach a whopping 20 million hit DPS on this Glacial Hammer POB while maintaining relatively decent survivability values and of course full spell suppression chance, as well as cap resistances for both elemental and chaos resistances. Now, Goratha specifically said that he himself is not going to start the league with this build, but it is a very solid league starter that you can do. You just need to keep in mind that this is a very melee build. It doesn't get much more melee than this. You have to walk up to monsters and slap them in the face, but because of the unique strengths of Glacial Hammer, you're going to be freezing and shattering a lot of things, and because of Frenzy Charge stacking, you're also going to be relatively quick going through the maps. Now, once again, this is not the best build to start the league with, but a lot of people have expressed the desire to go melee on league start and to play with a build that slaps enemies in the face, dealing direct damage. And I think there is no time better than the present to play such a build. So I'm going to be league starting this so that you don't have to. But if you have any doubt, right, just go for the safe league starter, Righteous Fire or Holy Relic of Conviction, Poison Necromancer. Both very good. I will link all the guides below, including the POBs. Make sure if you use the builds to tell the creators that you're using them and that you appreciate them making the guide, and to upvote their videos after you watch them in full. Make sure to come over to my stream to see how I'm doing, and definitely come over on Tuesday, 30th of July at 9 AM GMT for the Faded Podcast episode 139, where the community's most negative person, Lighty, and the most positive person, Talkative Try, are going to clash and going to give us their first impressions of Path of Exile 3.25 Settlers of Kalguur. Thank you guys for watching. I wish you a wonderful league start, and I'll see you soon.
I know a lot of people want to send blankets or water. Just send your cash.